There must be heirs for the survivors so that an entire tribe of Israel is not wiped out. But we cannot give them our own daughters in marriage, because we have sworn with a solemn oath that anyone who does this will fall under God's curse. This is why swearing oaths and stuff isn't necessarily a great idea, but especially when done in haste. What's up, cool people? My name's Matt. Welcome back to our Bible study. Alright. Judges 21, the final chapter of the book of Judges. Last chapter, there was a big battle between most of the tribes of Israel and Benjamin specifically, because the people of Gibeah, which was a town within the tribe of Benjamin, did some really bad stuff, and the rest of Israel wanted to basically root out the evil. So they fight. After a couple of days, the major group of Israelites succeed, and Gibeah is basically destroyed, along with a bunch of other stuff nearby. About 25,000 casualties from the tribe of Benjamin, and maybe this will, kind of put them back in a better direction. But let's find out. So, Judges 21. The Israelites had vowed at Mizpah, "We will never give our daughters in marriage to a man from the tribe of Benjamin." Now the people went to Bethel and sat in the presence of God until evening, weeping loudly and bitterly. "O Lord, God of Israel," they cried out, "why has this happened in Israel? Now one of our tribes is missing from Israel." Early the next morning, the people built an altar and presented their burnt offerings and peace offerings on it. Then they said, "Who among the tribes of Israel did not join us at Mizpah when we held our assembly in the presence of the Lord?" At that time, they had taken a solemn oath in the Lord's presence, vowing that anyone who refused to come would be put to death. Okay. So the whole "now one of our tribes is missing," I think is pretty much them, talking about Benjamin and the fact that there's, hardly anybody from that tribe left. But, again, they did that to try and root out the evil from within Israel. So, it kind of had to be done. Otherwise, they might have, as a whole, fallen even further away from God and wound up getting wiped out by somebody else. So, trying to figure out who might not have been at Mizpah when they vowed not to give their daughters in marriage to the tribe of Benjamin. And verse 6. The Israelites felt sorry for their brother Benjamin and said, "Today one of the tribes of Israel has been cut off. How can we find wives for the few who remain, since we have sworn by the Lord not to give them our daughters in marriage?" So they asked, "Who among the tribes of Israel did not join us at Mizpah when we assembled in the presence of the Lord?" And they discovered that no one from Jabesh Gilead had attended the assembly. For after they counted all the people, no one from Jabesh Gilead was present. So it said here that at an earlier time, they were thinking they would kill anybody who wasn't there at Mizpah when they made that vow. But now it's like, well, okay, now we feel kind of sorry after all this fighting has gone on. Maybe the vow happened because it says they had vowed at Mizpah. So maybe this was earlier, kind of like before all the fighting. that they had made this vow and said that anyone who wasn't there would be put to death. But now they're thinking, well, there's hardly anyone from Benjamin left. How are they even going to grow again as a tribe? Since we vowed that we're not going to give any of our daughters to them. So now it's more of like okay, who wasn't there? So maybe we can figure out a loophole in this. And no one from Jabesh Gilead apparently had been present when that vow was made. So the assembly sent... Back to reading now. Verse 10. So the assembly sent 12,000 of their best warriors to Jabesh Gilead, with orders to kill everyone there, including women and children. This is what you are to do, they said. Completely destroy all the males and every woman who is not a virgin. Among the residents of Jabesh Gilead, they found 400 young virgins who had never slept with a man, and they brought them to the camp at Shiloh in the land of Canaan. Okay, so they're kind of doing both of the things that they said. They're basically killing anyone who was married and or could not be given to the tribe of Benjamin as a wife. But then the younger women who could be given as wives, they spared, apparently. Anyway. Also, footnote to completely destroy. Haven't seen this footnote in a little while. So the Hebrew term used here refers to the complete consecration of things or people to the Lord, either by destroying them or by giving them as an offering. So it was like a righteous destruction, destruction/dedication. So, in any case, these people were either killed or, like, given to God at this point. And so then the 400 young women who could be given as wives were brought to the camp at Shiloh. And then verse 13. The Israelite assembly sent a peace delegation to the remaining people of Benjamin who were living at the rock of Rimmon. Then the men of Benjamin returned to their homes, and the 400 women of Jabesh Gilead who had been spared were given to them as wives. But there were not enough women for all of them. I believe it said last chapter there were like 600 men left from the tribe of Benjamin. So, yeah, 400 women doesn't quite match up with that. But in any case, at least they decided they're not going to fight anymore, and that, you know, the men of Benjamin could return back to their homes. So then verse 15. The people felt sorry for Benjamin because the Lord had made this gap among the tribes of Israel. So the elders of the assembly asked, "How can we find wives for the few who remain, since the women of the tribe of Benjamin are dead? There must be heirs for the survivors, so that an entire tribe of Israel is not wiped out. But we cannot give them our own daughters in marriage, because we have sworn with a solemn oath that anyone who does this will fall under God's curse." This is why swearing oaths and stuff isn't necessarily a great idea. There are times when maybe it's called for, but especially when done in haste, swearing an oath or anything like that is not it rarely works out well. And by the way, that's the kind of stuff when the Bible talks about saying that, you shouldn't swear. It usually says in the more detailed translations that, you shouldn't swear an oath. So that kind of stuff usually isn't so much talking about foul language. There are other verses that say that we shouldn't let, words that harm or other foul language or things like that come out of our mouths. So there is still an argument for that. That's not what I'm saying. But if you read any verses in the Bible that talk about, swearing, it's talking about oaths, generally speaking. Okay, so there's still some men of Benjamin who don't have wives, and they swore this oath, so they can't give their own daughters. So they're still trying to figure out a way to, help find wives for these other men so that the tribe of Benjamin can kind of rebuild. So then, verse 19. Then they thought of the annual festival of the Lord held in Shiloh, south of Lebanon, and north of Bethel, along the east side of the road that goes from Bethel to Shechem. They told the men of Benjamin who still needed wives, "Go and hide in the vineyards. When you see the young women of Shiloh come out for their dances, rush out from the vineyards, and each of you can take one of them home to the land of Benjamin as your wife." And when their fathers and brothers came to us in protest, when their fathers and brothers come to us in protest, we will tell them, "Please be sympathetic. Let them have your daughters, for we didn't find wives for all of them when we destroyed Jabesh Gilead. And you are not guilty of breaking the vow, since you did not actually give your daughters to them in marriage." Loophole, I guess. Anyway, I'll wrap up the chapter here before I give too many other thoughts. So the men of Benjamin did as they were told. Each man caught one of the women as she danced in the celebration and carried her off to be his wife. They returned to their own land, and they rebuilt their towns and lived in them. Then the people of Israel departed by tribes and families, and they returned to their own homes. In those days Israel had no king. All the people did whatever seemed right in their own eyes. And again, that phrase pops up like it did at the start of some of the preceding chapters. I want to say 17 and 18 in particular had that phrase at the start. But you can go back and check for yourself. Anyway, so I guess the idea then is that, hey, there's this festival thing coming up. And we know as part of this festival, there are young women who come out and dance. I guess in a certain spot that's near the vineyards, at least. So they tell the men of Benjamin that they can basically have some of these young women who are doing these dances as their wives. I guess it's assumed that they would have been young women who would not have already been given in marriage. And the loophole mindset here is that, well, as far as, the brothers and fathers of these young women, it's like, well, technically you didn't break the vow because you didn't give them in marriage. They were taken from you. Which isn't necessarily the best mindset to have, but, they had felt sorry for the tribe of Benjamin and wanted to help them out in some way, I guess. And really the main reason that they weren't giving their daughters in marriage to the tribe of Benjamin was because they had previously vowed not to. But, yeah, it bit of a loophole kind of thing, but I guess they kind of went along with it. Anyway, so then the men of Benjamin returned to their own land and rebuilt the towns. Probably taking quite a while before they had anywhere near the numbers of people they previously had, but I guess it was a start. And then after this festival was done, people went back to their own homelands with their tribes and families. But still, all the people did whatever seemed right in their own eyes. They still didn't really have a common sense of what was right and wrong, at least in some ways. And that definitely implies that they weren't necessarily, closely following God's laws. In fact, this kind of situation was what led to this whole issue with Gibeah doing a terrible thing and the rest of Israel coming to attack them and Benjamin having basically no people left. And yeah. So, still not a great sign heading into, future situations that we'll encounter in the Bible. But, that does it for the chapter and actually for the entire book of Judges. Yeah, so can't exactly say things got better for Israel after that whole fight with, the tribe of Benjamin in the town of Gibeah and all that, but I don't know, at least it's better that they did something, I guess. Still, the verse at the end that says they basically all just did whatever they wanted, it's not a great sign. In any case, that actually wraps up the book of Judges. Next up is Ruth, since we're just going, beginning to end, Genesis to Revelation, in that order. So, definitely should be a bit of a different feel to it. But, let me not say too much. We'll get there soon. So anyway, as always, like and share if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel, click the bell if you're on YouTube to get updates when I post new videos. Wherever else you might be seeing this, feel free to give me a follow or whatever you need to keep up with when I post new videos. Wherever you find this, look down in the description to get info on other social media pages and all that good stuff. And leave comments down below there with any thoughts you have. So that'll do it for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you soon for another video. Whatever the case is, till next time, stay cool, people.